peanuts.
Uh-huh.
Will you join me in lighting the chalice? The words are in your order of service. We light to keep it low, sacrifice for truth and meaning, in celebration of life we share together.
Thank you, John. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Paul Weiser. I serve on the board of the UUCL, and I have the pleasure of doing the welcome this morning. To do that, I'd like to read the words from Chip Rausch. We are here to enter sacred time. We are about to make this time and this place sacred by your presence and intention. Please turn off or silence your phones. As you do so, I invite us also to turn down the volume on our fears and to loosen the armor around our hearts. Don't take my word for it. Do it as slowly as you need to. If you take a little risk with these good people, you may find that they have the same human needs as you do. Breathe. Let go of the expectations placed on you by others and those that they taught you to place on yourself. Drop the guilt and the shame, not to shrink accountability, but in honest expectation of the possibility of forgiveness. Let go of the thing that you said the other day. Let go of the thing that you dread next week. Be here in this moment. Breathe here. Take 10 seconds and just breathe. Doesn't that feel good? We have a tradition of welcoming, or a way of welcoming visitors. And that way is asking you to stand, tell us your name, where you're from, and where you currently are living. You'll probably find that you have neighbors here. So let's start over on the left. Do we have any visitors over here that are willing to stand? Okay. Excuse me.
Hello, my name is Mary Riley Sanders, and I'm here with my best friend of 40 years, Tish Hans. I'm delighted to be here. I currently live in Sun City, and I'm originally from Rochester, New York.
Yes, right here.
We're Jan and Jim Weston. We are currently living in Sun City, have for about 15 years or so. We are originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Probably nobody else here. But we like the Low Country.
Great.
Welcome.
Welcome. Oh, there we go, right in the back.
I'm Josh Canick. This is my wife Amanda. My father George Canick and my stepmom Cheryl Canick are both members of this congregation. We're originally from the Washington D.C. area, but we currently live in Brooklyn, New York.
Yes.
Yes, I'm Judy Ekman. I'm here with our friends Chuck and Janice. I'm from Saratoga Springs, New York.
I'm the lesser half of that duo. I'm Jay. I retired in 2013 after spending 40 years at the Presbyterian United Church of Christ in Saratoga Springs, New York. In deference to this community, a third of the presbytery in the mid-60s voted against my ordination because I was too close to the Unitarians. Jesus was a Jew. If I might raise a concern, which I see that as long as I'm up. I was a draft resistor, as perhaps some of you were during the Vietnam War. I am deeply concerned that there seems to be absolutely no robust public debate about U.S. foreign policy, the war that's going on in Ukraine. To raise those questions that you branded as a Putin ally or a Audrey Taylor Greene aficionado. There's also no discussion happening about our policy toward Taiwan and the South China Sea. In a nuclear age, the absence of that kind of discussion and debate could lead to the end of our human existence. I don't have a solution, just a concern.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your concerns. Over here.
I'm Bob Valentine. We're from Rockville, Maryland. My wife, Marilyn,
is from Brooklyn. Everybody in Brooklyn back there. Now we live in the Washington, D.C. area, Brockville. We have dear friends, Mike and Betsy Morehouse and Mike Nicholson. We visit them on the way down to Florida and on the way back. We're on the way back now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to be here.
Nice to have you here.
I will just add that Betsy has been my best friend for 36 years. We get a better friend.
That's a good friend.
She met Mike when she and I went to a conference together at Prince Edward Island. So I was there from the inception of their friendship.
Thanks. You missed anybody going this way? How about over here? No? Anyone in the back that we missed? Well, we got a nice full crowd today, so thank you for all turning out. I guess it's time for our announcements, and we have some guest announcers. Kathleen Kelly wants to give a couple of announcements to the group, so Kathleen? Oh.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kathleen Kelly, and with Lynn Nordenberg, we co-chair the membership committee. And in the spirit of so many new members and visitors, and in the spirit of our strategic plan, which talks about expanding our impact, we bought new mugs. So the green mugs are now out at the table, and they're targeted for visitors. So the reason you take a green mug is so we'll know you're new, and then we'll make an effort to welcome you, to answer your questions. Now, the thing is, when they came, they are double the size of the other mugs. So newcomers, if you use a new mug, don't fill it up because we'll run out of coffee. So you'll wear out your welcome fast if you fill it up. Again, in the spirit of welcoming newcomers, we're about to institute a new plan, which is a buddy system. So if you're a newcomer, you come, and if after a while you decide to join, you become a new member. And our buddy system will be a system where experienced members will just be your buddy. We're not going to harass you. We're not going to bug you. We're going to be available to you. And you'll be assigned a buddy. If you're a new member, you sign the book, you're a new member, you'll be assigned a buddy for a year. Well, in order to do that, we have to get some buddies. So there's a sign-up sheet on the table. If you are interested in being a buddy, you just have to have been a member for a year or more and know how things work. Okay? You don't have to be a former board member. If you just understand a little bit about how we operate, you're eligible to become a buddy. There'll be a very short 15-minute orientation for buddies, so we have consistency. So 2 membership announcements, the mug and the buddy system. Thank you.
Patricia Friedman also wanted to make an announcement on a topic. Patricia is a former treasurer and current mentor of our current treasurer. So, Patricia?
Good morning. Good morning. I didn't necessarily volunteer for this morning, but I have been very involved with a lot that goes on in this congregation for quite some time. And my assignment this morning is to tell you a little bit about why I support UUCL. And I want to let you know that we're entering, as many of you know, the pledge drive period, and encourage all of you to support the upcoming pledge drive, which officially kicks off with a gala dinner on Friday, March 17th. I also wanted to share with you why I've been a supporter of UUCL for over 30 years. I have been associated with Unitarian Universalism since 1989, when I saw a sign in front of a church in Manhasset, New York, advertising a forum with American and Russian physicians. This unusual meeting, whose focus was how to prevent a nuclear war, was jointly sponsored by Physicians for Social Responsibility and by the UU Church at Shelter Rock. Why would a church support such an unusual, might I say, controversial event? This certainly wasn't the Catholic religion that I was raised in. I just had to see what it was all about. And that was my start to my UU journey and the unlearning of all that I thought a proper religion should be. When we moved to Hilton Head Island in the 1990s, I found like-minded travelers in the Unitarian Fellowship of Hilton Head Island. This small group eventually became UUCL. During all those years, my husband and I supported, by donations and sharing our time and talents. I held positions on the board ranging from board member at large to 4 years as co-president and 4 years as treasurer. Now I'm serving as a finance committee chair, and that's why I was invited to speak today. So I'm very aware of our finances and how it supports our mission. And I have to say that 3/4 of our income is from paid pledges. So it's very important to us, and there's a lot of very non-discretionary items in our budget. It's important to remember that giving is a spiritual practice. It's another opportunity to commit to our values and to be a catalyst for positive change. Through our financial commitments to UUCL, we can transform ourselves from individuals to an intentional, committed community where together we can create something larger than ourselves. I'd like to end with a very short poem written by the late Reverend Frank Anderson, and many of you who are older members will remember him. He was our minister from 1998 to 2003. I have never found religion in a holy book, or nesting in a mossy creed, or flashing in a neon Christ is coming. I found religion when you listened to my crazy talk, or took me on a mountain walk, or when it was your hand that helped me stand, or turned me to horizons grand. I found religion when I watched truth trampled in the dirt, or helplessly saw another's deepest hurt. When I heard a song of a twilight thrush, and I felt a full and universal hush. Everywhere we stand is holy ground, and everywhere where we dare to look, religion can be found. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Patricia. And you already introduced one of my topics, which was the UUCL Pledge Dinner, so I'll just give you a few more details on that. Excuse me. It's going to be $20 per person payable at the door, includes a full dinner catered by the Olive Garden. Entree choices are sure to satisfy all dietary preferences, wine and dessert. We'll have live entertainment as well as inspiration by congregational leaders. So please RSVP by March 12th by signing up in the vestibule or by sending an email to uucl.office@gmail.com. Another announcement that I want to make is joining Bill Newby and friends on Saturday, March 18th. We're filling up your calendar here, so this is March 18th at 7 p.m. as they present an evening of words and music. It's Bill Newby, Ellen Titus, David and Sarah, John Shepard, Donna Titus, Marcella Palmer, Mike Nicholson, and Joanne Maloche. I'm going to skip a couple because it's typical we are running out of time. Ann Harrison asked me to give you just a few announcements. This concerning centering our faith conversations. We are continuing to have the small group gatherings, formerly known as the 8 Principal Conversations. These meetings give us a chance to become more familiar with the proposal of a revision of our 7 principles. These conversations are being led by Ann Harrison. The next one will be held this week on Wednesday, March 8th. It will take place at the home of Marcella Palmer in Sound City from 10 to 11:30 a.m. Coffee and tea and treats, unspecified. Please add your name and contact information to the sign-up sheet in the foyer. If you wish to attend, you will receive an email early this week with the details. If you have any questions, again, you can contact Ann Harrison. Also, from Ann, Sharing Our Stories, just a quick reminder that the Sharing Our Stories Faith Development and workshop being led by Kim Lewis and Ann Harrison will take place next Sunday, March 12th, directly after the talkback. Okay, that's it for all the announcements that I know of. Anything else that I've missed? Good, okay. So we have a very special guest speaker today, and I'd like to introduce her so that she can make some opening remarks. But our guest is Gwenn McClune. She is a 38-year-old trans woman. She has been living fully as a woman for the past 2 years. She has 2 children, 19 and 17. Gwenn and her wife of 2 years live in Beaufort. The title of her talk today is going to be A Trans Woman's Journey of Radical Self-Acceptance. And I'd like to say that our guest speaker, Gwenn McClune, will be talking about her transition and what it's like to be a trans woman in our current world. We all know who we are, and it's not always who we're told to be. Finding the truth in our lives requires listening to our deepest inner voice, regardless of what the world tells us is true. Ultimately, this is a journey of radical self-acceptance through that finding of love and joys that always felt out of reach. I'd like to now welcome Gwenn.
Hi, so my name is Gwenn. I'm a local transgender woman who's given an opportunity to share a little of my story here today, and I'm really excited to be here. This is my first time giving a sermon, so just kind of bear with me. Hopefully you'll find it informative. But throughout our lives, we all experience things which can transform our lives, especially our perception of ourselves. We've all had them, and we've all fought against them too, either consciously or subconsciously. Growth is something that's always worth embracing, especially when we're terrified of it. We know ourselves the most when we trust ourselves, and in doing so, we can discover things about who we are that we never would have found otherwise.
We stand and sing hymn 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Today our official joys and concerns.
Tip the mic. Tip the mic.
Okay, is that? Oh, that's much better. We invite you to come forward and share a joy or a concern that you have that we as a community can respond to share in your joy or lighten your burden of concern. You would come forward and take a stone from the table, share your joy and concern, give us your name first, and then when you're done, place the stone in the cairn. We ask for no announcements, please, and no political statements. This part of the service will not be broadcast, so you don't need to worry about your privacy or the I will take 2 stones and place them in the cairn for those joys and concerns that remain unspoken. And now, if you'll join me in reading the affirmation number 458. in your back of your hand. Everybody got it? 458.
Oh, I have to put my glasses on. I had COVID a couple of weeks ago, and my brain still is not right.
Okay. Mindful of your diversity of knowledge and community of diversity of practice, wherever we come together, beginning with ourselves as we are, to share the strength of integrity and the heritage of the Spirit in the unending quest for wisdom and love. Now, this is the giving portion of our ceremony, of our service, and it's already been mentioned. Okay. Thank you, David. I don't know what we would do without him. It's already been mentioned that we're donating a special donation this week to the Sandalwood Food Pantry. And if you have brought any food, please put it either in the back of the sanctuary or in the corner in the vestibule. You'll see other bags of things there. And now we will take our collection for the support of this church and this community. Thank you for your generosity. And now we'll hear our message from Gwenn.
Thank you. So when I was young, my mom used to tell me about how she grew up in a Catholic school, and I'm sure a lot of you share that experience. But that they would beat the left-handed kids because being left-handed was a sign of the devil or evil or something like that. But it didn't make them right-handed. It just made them afraid to show that they were left-handed. My mom's left-handed, so when she left school, she switched back to her left hand. Controlling these children didn't change who they were. It just changed how we treated them. We vilified them, we treated them as inferior, and their only crime was just being a little different. Reflecting on this, I feel that there's very little difference between a person who is trans and a person who's left-handed. In both cases, our brain's just a little different. But portraying who we are as a handicap, it limits us. It makes every part of our existence harder. I mean, imagine only being able to use your offhand for everything you did. It would make everything take more effort, more concentration, and it would feel unnatural. I didn't really realize I was trans until I was 36. I had spent that time up until then living my life as a man. My whole life I've been a pretty feminine person. I was relentlessly mocked for this when I was young, from my family, my friends, people I didn't even know very well, even at my church. I spent a lot of time trying to be more masculine, and when you're trying to emulate being masculine, you tend to emulate the worst of it. The toxic components that are prevalent in our society, and it's hard to bring about the healthy parts of masculinity when it's not truly yourself. I had hardened myself. I had tried to suppress my emotions and my more feminine traits. I used to think that I was very logical, and I placed reason above all else, features that we teach men to carry. It had made me cruel, cold and often cruel. I was a poor partner, a poor parent, a poor friend. I had always suffered from very severe depression and anxiety, never knowing a time where I wasn't ready to die. When driving my car, I would see each tree as a release that, should I ever muster the courage to swerve into it. I couldn't bear to look in the mirror or take photos of myself, so there's very few. I didn't realize that this was gender dysphoria. I just felt like it wasn't me. It was like looking into a warped carnival mirror. It felt like I was riding along through my life with someone else in control. Every choice that I made felt like the only choice. Every action I took felt like it was predetermined. Through years and many years of therapy, like 10 years before I realized I was trans, I had started to allow myself to express my more feminine attributes, which had allowed me to grow substantially as a person, but at that point, I still hadn't realized I was trans, as that option had been relatively cut off to me. In January of 21, I had a pretty stark realization that I was trans. In my community, it's called cracking your egg. There's an app you can get with your phone, and it allows you to just mess around with your appearance. It's called Face App. One of the features is that it allows you to switch your gender. I had seen my friends do it, and it looked amusing. But when I did it, it was like the first time I had ever seen myself. A person that I had always kind of like imagined in the back of my mind but never seen. And it was the first time I had cried that much in years and years. But I was also terrified. I knew a few people who were trans, some who had decided to transition and some who had stayed closeted. And I knew the price that I would wind up paying regardless. If I stayed closeted, I knew I'd be miserable and honestly probably kill myself at some point. But if I transitioned, I knew I was risking my marriage, my relationship with my friends and my family, and giving up the privilege that I had as a man and a cisgender person in general. Cisgender, if you don't know, means that you're just the gender that you were born with. But I could lose. Sorry, lost my place. I knew that every step of my life was going to hold more challenges, but I would also gain the opportunity to just be myself. I spent a little time thinking about this and decided to tell my wife that I was struggling with my gender about a month later. I had seen many horror stories about how relationships went when a trans person came out in their marriage, but many of them had the commonality of hiding themselves until they began the process of transitioning, and it became in part impossible for their partner not to notice. But I wanted Ashley to be with me through the process, to have someone to travel the path with, and not to have to beg her to meet me at my destination. So over the next many months, we worked through it, one step at a time, and there were plenty of struggles. One of the hardest for us was Ashley having to grieve her husband, who I was. I had to deal with this too, and so did she. Though she was initially afraid to do so, we eventually worked through it. It's normal to grieve the loss of who a trans person was and who we expected them to become. Even though it's not generally appropriate to force them to grieve with you through that, it is a big change, and kind of like when you realize you'll never carry your child to bed again, or when they first move out. It's not bad, but change can trigger grief. Overall, I have been very fortunate through my first years of transitioning. My friends were supportive. My family doesn't overly care regardless, but that's a different layer of trauma. And my children handled it well. Thankfully, my wife Ashley and I have grown much closer because of it. By early 2022, I was fully out publicly, including at work, where I was accepted at least a basic level. I began hormone therapy a couple months later. I've actually been on hormones for just about a year now. Throughout the process, I have had the opportunity to be more and more of myself, to become more and more able to accept who I am. And even though it's only been a couple of years, I've almost begun to forget who I was and what it was like to live that way. It's like a bad dream that's been washing away. My ability to embrace my inner self has made me a better human. It's easier to love. It's easier to care about others. It's easier to enforce my own boundaries and treat myself with the respect that I never could. Ashley's often said, I'm the person I was before, but I'm more of that person. The best of myself has come to the surface. My anger and bitterness towards the world was replaced with compassion and love. I feel sorry for people who have spurned those like me, like seeing a similar pain to what I had felt before I was able to open my heart instead of block it off. My life has become so much more complete than I've ever believed possible. And while it still is a struggle, especially with our culture's attitude toward trans people, transitioning saved my life, it saved my soul. It allowed me to find my whole self. It still took some time and effort to make peace with who I was, to accept the male part of my life as part of who I'm becoming. I had to love who I was, to embrace the challenges he had faced, gave me a chance to be my more whole self. To be able to thank him for his gifts and his labors, to accept what had happened to me was both painful and life-giving. Without that past, I would not have grown into who I am. Accepting both our best and our worst is a challenge we all have to face. And when we try to deny the bad, we often forfeit the good. It's like a form of self-punishment. Being a trans person has definitely had its struggles. Finding a job has been difficult. I've been unemployed for like 2.5 months. I get interviews and no one seems interested in hiring me, even when I'm very qualified or overqualified for the position. I'm misgendered pretty consistently in public. I get stared at. I've been fortunate to not take a lot of brunt of like being directly insulted, but it happens a lot to people. I'm terrified of the vilification of trans people, especially trans women who are treated like predators despite literally being no cases of that actually happening. Trans women, especially those of color, are at the highest risk of physical and sexual violence of any population in this country. It's something like 4 times the rate of the next highest group. Hundreds of pieces of discriminatory legislation have been proposed this year alone, specifically targeting trans youth and young adults, and it's already been made clear that that's the beginning and not the end goal. And this is what trans people are facing daily in our country. And our voices aren't enough to make us safe. We're just too few. We make up less than 2% of the population, and that's a very, very high estimate. People who are publicly out are at less than like 0.5% right now, but many people are still in the closet. And we need the support of others. We need people speaking on our behalf. And the people I need to convince of our worth are not in this room. Trans people like me need voices like yours. We don't have elders in our community because they didn't have a chance to live full lives. At my age, at 38, I am treated as an elder in my community. We cannot sit silently any longer. I also thought these issues were in the past, but they are getting worse and not better. If I had not embraced who I really am, I would not have found the strength to stand in front of you, to talk to others who don't understand these things, to help provide guidance from others who are questioning their gender and need a hand finding what is their truth. And I'm always happy to speak to anyone who wants to learn. I've been very blessed to get to work with some other churches and the Human Library Project in Beaufort, which I'm doing again in a couple months, a month or so. And I'm also getting to go to the state capitol on Wednesday to help there if I can with the South Carolina United for Justice and equality for their Meet Me at the State House event. And I love actually being able to do this work, to be able to finally feel like I'm in touch with my community, even though many in it only see me as sick. But seeing someone who is whole often looks like sickness when we're afraid to embrace our truth. And it's kind of what I encourage you to do today, is to embrace the truth of who we are. Not just me, but yourselves as well. Like, it's very easy to overlook who we are as people because we're taught how to hide it. That's it.
If you're willing and would like to, please stand and we'll sing hymn number 100.
Peace on your river.
Well, we have much to be thankful for this morning. We want to mention and appreciate the talents of John and David, as well as the contributions to our services from our worship associates who couldn't do it without all you guys. Thank you to our choir for their musical contributions, and certainly to our special speaker, Gwenn, for sharing your journal of radical self-acceptance. We certainly appreciate it. I'd like to send you out with the words from Kelly Weissman Aspruth Jackson. I send you out now to share yourself with the world. May its promise and complexity set your mind ablaze. May you hold fast to what your life has taught you. May you question everything. And when you have changed the world and the world has changed you, may you return again to this place and share what you have learned with us. Sounds like a talk back, doesn't it? We'll have final remarks from Gwenn.
I hope you'll all stay for our talkback time today. I'm really looking forward to helping y'all learn more about me and how my transitions impacted my life. And if you have any questions, even if you're unsure if they're appropriate or how to ask them, I'm happy to do so. I'm not an easily offended person. And I'm happy to help you learn. I do want to end on this though. We all have a chance to be more than we currently are and to embrace ourselves in a radical way that defies how we're taught to be. When we listen to the truth of our existence, we can change the world for the better. Thanks for having me.
Will you join me now in extinguishing the chalice? The words are in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, so that in our hearts the light of truth